Today's video is that most people are crazy. And what we typically see is whenever people are supporting things like war, government corruption, and tyranny, we always come up with some kind of rational explanation for why people do this. People support war because they're afraid, or they support tyranny because they have too much financial interest invested in the system at this point, or this and that. There's always some kind of rationalization. If somebody just goes like that, I don't expect there to be some kind of good explanation. To me, it's just like animalistic nonsense, most likely. So when we see extremely irrational behavior, well, why doesn't it make more sense to assign an irrational motive than a rational motive? Okay, so when you actually listen to what people say more carefully, they don't say we support tyranny because we're just afraid, or because it's the least bad option or something like this. They don't give some kind of explanation like that. What they say is, and they always say exactly this: without the government, there wouldn't be roads or hospitals. In like a really smug, you just got burned kind of tone. That's what the normal response is going to be. And that argument, when you actually examine it, it is just so preposterously insane. When we're talking about government, I always bring it up, and I'm bringing up war, I'm bringing up taxation, which is theft, I'm bringing up unjustified persecution of innocent people. You're saying it's okay to mass murder people if we get roads. Well, the fact is, most people do support that, right? They do support that when they support the government. So it should be pretty obvious. Most people are pretty damn crazy, right? They're very, very crazy. They don't do any philosophy. They don't do any critical thinking. They don't even do any thinking. So to me, it doesn't make any sense why they would have some kind of rational motive for supporting something totally crazy and evil. The same is with war. Like, if you ask people their rationalizations for war, ask a person why they support the Ukraine war. They're not going to tell you some kind of rational explanation. Okay, the typical response they're going to give you is that, well, if we tried diplomacy and peacemaking, that might fail, right? Because with Hitler it failed. This person, it's a totally insane response, because if diplomacy fails, then you just have war, and you already have war. So there's no consequence to trying diplomacy. There's a big consequence to war. War is a guarantee. Hundreds of thousands of people will die. There's very little consequence towards peacemaking. And there's all the reason in the world to think that peacemaking is very probable to succeed in this scenario. Um, Even if you just look at like past history, with the Cuban Missile Crisis, the U.S. and Russia had reasonable, good faith dialogue, and they were able to prevent the invasion of Cuba. The U.S. had soldiers ready to invade Cuba, and there was no war there. Okay, so I'm gonna go further, and I'm gonna argue that people most definitely are not just indifferent towards corruption, war, and tyranny. They actively support these things. It's hardwired deep into their genetics, and these genes activate usually around the age of 14 or 15. Um, and I think it's very evidently obvious that they're not indifferent, but they actively support these things. Okay, because people, if they were indifferent, they just wouldn't vote. But they actively support people they know are corrupt. Every major political party in Canada has been caught numerous times involved in corruption. Even using mainstream news sources, you can find that all over, right? Same with the Democrats, Republicans. They're both obviously corrupt. They both obviously start tons of wars. They're both obviously tyrannical and pass millions and millions of unjustified laws. Yeah, you probably shouldn't support unbelievably evil tyrants. You'd probably have to have some really damn good explanation. You'd have to have studied political science for, decades and decades, and gone over just mountains and mountains of evidence, and truly been like, there really is no possible better alternative, right? They're just there isn't some third party you can vote for, which there obviously is. I mean, you couldn't just start a new political party. You couldn't just get somebody nice and convince them, hey, you should start a political party. There's no third alternative. We have to just support the, like, if you, it's a lot more likely that people are like minions. You know that movie Minions, those little yellow guys? They look for the most despicable leader to follow. And that may sound kind of baffling. Why do people love evil so much? Why do people always want to support evil? And why is it? Why do they have a gene? Why is this hardwired so deeply into their nature, and it shuts down all their rational thinking facilities? Well, I don't fully know why, but I suspect it has a lot to do with military tribal success. I think when you have a very successful, aggressive military clan, that involves a lot of conformity and totally obedient slaves and idiots. I think idiots are very important in military success. And if you're willing to just mindlessly obey some tyrant and fight wholeheartedly to the death for them, right? Well, that clan is very likely to be militarily successful in an aggressive and invasive sense. If people are run by more wise societies, they tend to not be as aggressive. So, throughout human history, all these really aggressive and imperialistic clans seem to be the ones winning and dominating. Like the Mongols, they were the most successful in terms of area, right? And they're just dicks, basically, right? Just a tyrant and a bunch of minions following this tyrant, right? So I think what happens is evolutionarily, people who are not minions tend to just get killed, and the minions tend to survive. Their clans tend to do good. They tend to rape and kill everybody, and so we're all the descendants of these like minions, and we're genetically hardwired. Most people are genetically hardwired to be these conformist, tyranny-loving minions. I can just give you like mountains of data. Like, you go through all this data. Whenever you look at the most tyrannical things the government's doing, it's like almost always 70% will support it, 30% will oppose it. So I think there's very clearly something wrong with people in the head. And um, you can just see when you argue with like a minion per se, right? They just have such a narcissism and arrogance in the way they think. They have such utter confidence in a completely irrational proposition. You realize there's absolutely no way you can reason with these people. Um, so what do you think? Do you like this video? Do you like these really fast videos? Are they good? I can put out a lot of these because it takes me like literally 5 minutes to make this.
Helemaal hier, David. Kom maar hier, man. Maar die grap